Um, so describe growing up in Poland.
The what?
Describe growing up in Poland.
Well, my dad was transferred. He was a railroad engineer, and that's how we moved. And of course, my mother and my father, they came from that area. And we had a house there, and my grandmother or my mother's mother, they had a farm there, and so we lived there from, I think, 39 till 1945. And then we, since my dad worked for the railroad, he spotted a railroad car, a freight car somewhere close to our house, and we moved our stuff in there, and then he hooked it up to a train which was going to the west, and that's how we ended up in the western part of Germany, away from Poland, see.
And that was when you were running from the Russians, right?
Yes, in the Russians, yeah, we could hear the explosions and all that, but I mean, we just got out there on time.
Okay. How did you survive living on the rail car?
Well, we were glad that we got, first of all, that we got away from out of Poland, and we had some of the stuff, some of the beddings, and in the rail car, so it worked okay.
Was it just you and your brother on the rail car?
And my sister, and Tante Gisela, yeah.
Okay. When the war was over, where were you?
Well, we were in the western part, what used to be where we used to live, in the western part. But we still had other relatives, they were still in Poland.
And so did they slowly move over to the western part?
No, they didn't have a chance. They stayed there until the Russian gave up that part of the country, like Poland and Eastern Germany, see.
Okay. What led you to go to Canada?
When?
What led you to go to Canada?
Well, Uncle Günther, my brother, he went there before. He had a girlfriend, she was a nurse, and she was hired, well, she got a job in Canada, and then he followed her, and my Uncle Günther said, if I like it there, then I tell you, then you come over there. So that's how I ended up in Canada.
So how did you make your living in Canada?
The first few years, I drove truck for the wholesale market. And then later on, I went to welding school and I went back into the welding trade.
Okay. So why did you leave Canada?
I left Canada in, let me see, in 58, no wait a minute. Yeah, I think it was 1958. That's right.
Okay. Why did you leave Canada?
Because my brother, Uncle Günther, he went to Los Angeles. He had a friend there he went to school with. So I said to him, I'm not going to stay in Canada by myself. So that's why I went also to the United States.
Okay. Were you a permanent resident of the U.S. when you were drafted?
Oh yeah, I had a green card. I was a permanent resident.
Okay. When were you drafted in there?
When I was what?
When were you drafted into the Army?
1958.
What did you? What was your job in the Army?
I was a medic. I was, well, first of all, they wanted to make a signal operator out of me, but then they found out I wasn't a citizen at that point, and they put me in the medics. And so I had medical training here at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio.
Okay. So, what did they try to make you at first?
A radio operator.
Radio operator. Okay, and so then when you were a medic, you still didn't have a green card, or did you have a green card?
I,
Then?
well, I had a green card, but I still was
Oh.
not a citizen.
Okay, all right.
I mean, a green card was a permanent resident, but it didn't make me a citizen, even that I was in the service.
When were you stationed in Germany?
Okay, I 19, well, from 58 to 61
What area in Germany were you stationed
in the
at?
southern part near Frankfurt.
How was going back to Germany for you?
Well, the good part was I got a 3-day pass once a month, and I went home to see my parents, and that's how I met my wife, Rosal.
Yeah. So how did you meet your wife?
Well, she worked in a restaurant, and sometimes we went there and eat, and you know that's how the conversation started. And now she's still my wife, and we've been married 54 years.
Really?
Oh yeah.
It's a long time. What was the military like?
Well, when I was drafted in Philadelphia, I had basic training in Fort Dix, and then they shipped me to San Antonio to the Brooks Medical Center. And at that time they still had the draft, the military draft. And see, when I came over, I was 25 and a half when I came over in the States. And they drafted until 26 years old. And so I waited as long as I could to register. But then in December, they caught up with me, and I did register at the end, and then they drafted me shortly thereafter. And the thing is, I was I was 25 and a half, and here I was together with these young soldiers, which were like 18 years old, coming out of high school. They had a different attitude than what I had.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How did you make a living in California?
Well, after I got out of the service, I went to California.
Okay.
I got discharged to California. And, excuse me. And there I found, well, first of all, I didn't find a job for a long time. And I came to a point, you know, Rosal, my wife, was still in Germany. And I told her, I said, I may go back in the army. Because I couldn't find a job, see?
Yeah.
But then finally I found a job. And I was a welder, welding gas pipes. And I had that job until I found a better paying job when I worked for Westinghouse for 17 years.
Okay. How did your wife adjust to living in the U.S.?
She liked it. I mean, she made a good adjustment. We had no problem.
No problem. That's good. What was the paperwork like coming into the U.S.?
There was a lot of paperwork,
Yeah.
you know, and but then since I had a clean record, you know, everything was approved over a certain period of time.
Like, what do you remember about the JFK assassination?
That was, I believe, what was it, 67?
63. It was right before I was born.
Oh,
A
before
month or two, maybe a month before or something.
Let me see. No, I'm thinking about something else. You know, I thought it was terrible. I followed all the news of what happened. You know, Oswald
Like the news
and
reports
how
and
he got and it happened. I know it happened in Dallas, and it was on TV for a long time. You know, it's really terrible.
What do you remember about the moon landing?
Well, I remember when they landed on the moon and they put that flag up there, and I don't remember who the astronaut was. Was it Aldrich?
I think so.
Well, whatever. I mean, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Do you remember the energy crisis of the 70s?
I sure do.
What was it like?
We lived in California, and it was hard to get gasoline, and there were all kinds of cars, 50 cars in line sometimes on Brookhurst on Beach Boulevard. And then sometimes there was trouble because people cut in line instead of
Waiting.
driving with the car. They came with gasoline cans, with 5-gallon cans. And then when one car pulled up, then they walked in, and filled up their can. It was.
And you do odd even days, like what was on the license plate, I think, right?
I believe
If you had an
so.
odd number, ended in an odd number, you could only gas up on odd days.
I believe so, yeah.
And you couldn't gas up if you had more than a half a tank, because didn't Jack Heskett put a switch on his fuel gauge so he could turn it off when he had to gas up at red zero?
No, I don't remember that.
Where was it? What was Houston like once you moved here?
Well, once we came to, I'm glad we came to Houston because, okay, I had a job with Westinghouse, and Westinghouse sold the plant to somebody else, and then that company I worked for a long time. But anyway, they moved to Houston here on West Belt. And since I was in supervision, I had a chance to come up here. And that's how we ended up here in Houston.
So, did you like it better here than
Well,
California?
When we had bosses come and visit us in California, and they said, we're going from air condition to heat, or from heat to air condition. I mean, that's how quick the change is here in Houston. Where in California, it goes gradually. And but we had to get used to it.
Who were your top 2 presidents and why?
The what?
Who were your top 2 presidents and why?
Well, I like President Reagan, and what was the other one?
Nixon. No.
No, Nixon wasn't very long there. No, he wasn't. He didn't make it. I think it was Carter.
Carter?
But Reagan was my favorite. President Reagan, yeah.
And then who was your worst president, in your opinion?
Well,
The present guy.
that was the Bushman.
The Bush man?
And now there's another Bush running, and I don't think we need another Bush.
What was your most important moments?
The most important what?
Moments?
Well, the most important when we bought the house and started raising a family. I mean, that was exciting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's about it.
Name Helmut Schmid. I'm 82 years old and came to the U.S. in '58. I was drafted into the Army in December '58 for 2 years. I took basic training in Fort Dix, New Jersey, and advanced training at Brooke Medical Center. San Antonio. I became a medic and was attached to a construction battalion and was shipped out to Germany. Later moved to Verdun, France, where I worked as a medic in the field and dispensary. During my service in the Army, I was promoted to sergeant and had an honorable discharge in '81. I spent